Act as if everything always works out for you. Not because you are delusional, but because you understand the creative power of assumption. You are not waiting for evidence to prove your belief. You are the one who gives it life. And then the world shapes itself to match the image held within. You walk into a room not wondering if they like you, but knowing you are already accepted. You don't look at your bank account and tremble, you feel the abundance now. You live from the end, you don't hope, you know. Because the feeling of the wish fulfilled is not something you chase, it's something you embody. You move in that state. Nothing needs to change out there for your inner world to be different. In fact, nothing can change out there until you change within. That is the great secret. Life mirrors your inner assumptions. Every moment, every encounter, every so-called random event bends itself to the shape of your inner conviction. You are not reacting to life, you are projecting. You are the operant power. What you assume to be true becomes true. The world doesn't argue with you, it simply says yes. You say, I am successful, and life responds, so be it. You say things always work out for me, and circumstances reorganize themselves to fulfill that command. You may not see how, you may not see when, but the seed is planted the moment you assume, and it cannot fail to bear fruit. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for a sign. You are the sign. Act as if everything always works out for you, and it will. Because when you persist in the assumption hardens into fact. To live from the end means to dwell in the state of your fulfilled desire, not as a dream to be attained in the future, but as a reality that already is. It is not a passive wishing or idle hoping, it is an active inner knowing. You assume the feeling, the mood, the atmosphere of already being the person you want to be, of already having what your heart longs for. This is not self-deception, it is spiritual truth in action. You are not asking for something to come, you are dwelling in the consciousness where it already exists. When you live from the end, you don't say, I will be, you say, I am. You don't say, one day I'll have love or success or healing. You declare inwardly with full faith, it is mine now, I have it, I am it. You walk through your day with the ease and confidence of one who already possesses the very thing others are still chasing. You speak differently, move differently, and think differently. Not because the world has changed, but because you have changed within. The outer must conform to the inner, it has no choice. Your outer world is a mirror of your internal state. To live from the end is to no longer dwell in the consciousness of longing. It is to leave behind the vibration of lack. As long as you continue to wish, to want, to yearn, you are affirming that you do not yet have. And the law is precise. It gives you not what you ask for with your lips, but what you dwell in with your imagination. If you live in the feeling of wanting, life will continue to give you reasons to want. But if you shift into the feeling of already having, the world begins to echo that state back to you in ways that defy logic and understanding. Imagination is not fantasy, it is the divine creative power operating in every human being. What you feel to be true in your imagination, if persisted in, becomes your reality. So when you sit in stillness and imagine yourself already being, doing, or having what you desire, you are planting a seed in the unseen. The end you see and feel within becomes the cause of the physical effect. Living from the end is tending to that seed. It is trusting that what you imagined is already unfolding, and nothing is more powerful than that trust. In your inner world, time does not exist. Everything is now. When you imagine the future, you bring it into the now. You step into a parallel reality where your desire is fulfilled. The senses may deny it, the facts may contradict it. But you are not living by sight, you are living by inner vision. The senses only reflect the past, what you once believed, assumed, and accepted. If you wish to change the reflection, you must first change the image within. So you do not wait for things to change, you assume they already have. You do not beg for a better tomorrow, you bring the better tomorrow into today by feeling its truth now. Suppose you desire love. You do not wait for someone to show up and make you feel loved. You close your eyes, quiet your mind, and dwell in the consciousness of already being loved, cherished, and valued. You walk through your world as someone who knows their worth and expects kindness. The world will reflect this to you because your inner shift demands it. Suppose you desire wealth. You do not obsess over how much is in your account today. You begin to live, act, and think as someone who is already abundant. Not recklessly, but faithfully, knowing that the feeling of abundance, deeply felt and lived, must draw its outer counterpart. The law does not concern itself with whether you think it's possible or logical. It only responds to what you feel to be true. If you feel yourself to be poor, unloved, or stuck, the law reflects that back. But the moment you step into the state of already being free, prosperous, or fulfilled, and persist in that state, regardless of appearances, the outer world will be compelled to rearrange itself to match. It cannot fail, for the outer is a shadow of the inner. This is why the instruction is always to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not to visualize passively, not to daydream, but to feel it real, to see it, touch it, hear it, taste it, in your mind and heart until it becomes more real to you than anything the senses report. And when you walk through the world, you carry that feeling with you. Even if no one else sees it, you know it. And that knowing becomes the bridge of incidents that leads to its full expression in your life. You do not need to know how it will come about. The how is not your concern. Your only task is to maintain the end, to stay faithful to the state you have chosen and to refuse to return to the old story. Doubt will try to creep in, the old beliefs will rise. But each time they do, you gently but firmly return to your inner sanctuary where the desired state already exists. You remind yourself, this is who I am now, this is mine now. You persist. Living from the end is the quiet power of certainty. It is not about struggle, it is not about effort. It is a deep inner alignment. A surrender to the truth that you are already one with your desire and it is already one with you. The outer world, being a reflection, cannot resist such conviction. It is drawn to it, molded by it, shaped by it. So you relax into the state of the end. You carry it lightly, joyfully, and even before the evidence appears, you celebrate. Because the reality of it lives in you already. Assumption creates reality. This is not merely a hopeful phrase or a philosophical idea. It is the foundation of how your world is shaped. Every condition, every circumstance, every encounter you experience begins first within your own consciousness. Nothing enters your life except that which aligns with your internal state of belief. The world you see is not happening through you. It is happening through you. Your assumptions are the silent architects of your experience, and they build every detail with precise faithfulness, whether you are aware of it or not. To assume something is not to wish for it or to vaguely desire it, but to accept it as truth. It is to move from wanting to being. If you assume you are confident, then you walk, speak, and carry yourself as one who already possesses that confidence. If you assume you are loved, you do not seek validation, you give love freely because you feel full within. If you assume that life supports you, then you stop fearing the future and begin to move with grace, knowing the path will unfold perfectly, even when you cannot see it. This power of assumption is always active. It does not sleep, it does not pause, and it is not influenced by the outer world, it influences the outer world. Every day, whether consciously or unconsciously, you are assuming things about yourself, others, and life itself. You might assume that people cannot be trusted, or that success is difficult, or that you're not worthy of joy, and these invisible assumptions shape your encounters, your moods, and the events that unfold around you. Your assumptions are like seeds planted in the fertile ground of consciousness. Once planted and nurtured by your feelings and focus, they must grow. There is no partial creation. Life reflects your assumptions fully. If you walk around assuming that opportunities pass you by, that people ignore you, or that money is hard to come by, you are not observing reality. You are creating it. The mirror does not lie. It only reveals what you are inwardly convinced is true. You cannot experience beyond what you assume because assumption becomes your point of attraction. You draw to you experiences that match your inner certainty. The more consistently you assume a thing to be true, the more solidly it appears in your world. This is not about forcing things, it is about alignment. To assume is to shift your identity, to live from the inner conviction that you already are what you seek to become. You don't wait for the world to show you proof. You become the proof. You don't need confirmation to believe. You believe and then confirmation arrives. The law is exact. It responds not to your wishes but to your state of being. It does not respond to your pleas but to your belief. What you accept inwardly becomes what you experience outwardly. Imagine someone who constantly says, "I never have good luck." That becomes their truth, not because luck is real or not real, but because they have accepted it as their identity. The world, like a faithful servant, responds by arranging circumstances that reflect that belief. Doors close, delays occur, relationships falter, not because of fate or coincidence, but because the assumption is setting the tone for all of life's responses. Change that assumption to "everything always works out for me," and persist in it, and life must begin to mirror that back. To synchronicities, ease, and unexpected blessings. This is not magic, but law. You are not manipulating the universe, you are aligning with its natural rhythm. The universe is responsive, not random. It takes its cue from you, and your assumption is the cue. It listens not to your words, but to the feeling behind them. You may say, "I am wealthy," but if you assume poverty in your heart, then that is what will show up. You may say, "I am healthy," but if your dominant assumption is one of fragility, illness, or fear, then the outer world will only echo that state. The secret is to bring your inner feeling into harmony with your desired outcome, not just once, but persistently. This is why discipline of the mind is essential. You must become aware of what you are assuming throughout the day. Are you assuming that people misunderstand you, that life is hard, that your dreams are far off? These hidden assumptions, repeated over time, become reality without you even noticing the process. But the moment you become conscious of them, you regain your power. You can choose differently. You can stop reacting to the evidence and start assuming a new truth. To change your life, you must begin by assuming the version of yourself that already has what you seek. If you want peace, assume that peace is your natural state. If you want freedom, assume you are already free. If you want love, assume that love flows to you and through you. You do not wait for someone to give it to you, you bring it forth from within. The shift is internal, and once it becomes real to you, life cannot help but rearrange to match. You must understand that your assumption does not need the permission of others. You do not need the world to agree with you before you choose a new belief. You simply accept it, live in it, and persist in it until it hardens into fact. This is not wishful thinking. It is the most practical use of imagination. It is not about denying reality, but about understanding that reality is not fixed. It is fluid, changeable, and completely responsive to the contents of your inner world. What you assume with feeling becomes inevitable. So the question is not what is true, but rather, what am I assuming to be true? Because whatever that answer is, it is what you are experiencing or are about to experience. You cannot be deceived by the outer world if you stay faithful to your assumption. The outer world is old news. It is a result, not a cause. If you don't like what you see, don't fight it. Change your assumption. Choose a new inner state and occupy it fully and faithfully. The world will catch up. You are always becoming what you assume yourself to be. Not what you hope to be, not what you pretend to be, but what you deeply accept as your truth. This is the silent power within you. It does not shout, but it rules. It does not force, but it governs. Your assumption is your declaration, your command, your blueprint. It is the mold from which your experience is cast. When you grasp this, you no longer beg life to be different. You become different within, and life follows. You are the operant power. There is no external force deciding your fate, no hidden hand moving pieces on a cosmic chessboard without your consent. The power is within you. You are not a victim of life, but its author. The assumptions you accept, the thoughts you persist in, and the feelings you nourish are the tools with which you build your world. You are not here to be acted upon. You are here to act. And that action begins not with effort in the outer world, but with conviction in the inner world. This power does not come from effort or striving, it comes from knowing. Knowing that what you assume to be true will be made visible. Knowing that your inner state calls forth your outer experience. When you realize that you are the operant power, you stop looking outside yourself for signs, for approval, or for permission. You stop waiting for someone else to fix things. You no longer feel helpless in the face of circumstances because you recognize that every circumstance is a shadow, a reflection of your own consciousness. To be the operant power means you no longer argue with the mirror. You do not try to fix the reflection. You go straight to the source, your own inner state. You don't chase results because you know that results are effects, not causes. The cause is always within. You become selective with what you entertain in your mind. You become deliberate with your assumptions. You stop living by reaction and start living by design. You understand that nothing can come into your experience unless it is first accepted in your inner world. That acceptance might be conscious or unconscious, but it is always present. Every person, situation, and event that appears in your life comes clothed in the garments of your inner beliefs. There is no one to blame, and there is nothing to fear. You are not powerless. You are the one power at work in your reality. And as such, you have the ability to choose differently, to create anew, to assume a higher truth, and watch it unfold with mathematical precision. This understanding transforms how you respond to life. No longer do you ask, why is this happening to me? Instead, you ask, what am I assuming that is causing this to appear? And just like that, the power returns to you. You are no longer caught in the illusion of chance or fate. You see clearly that the law of assumption is not a force that comes and goes, it is constant, and you are using it every moment of the day. Whether you realize it or not, you are always assuming, always creating, always commanding reality through the state you dwell in. When you take full responsibility for your world, not in blame, but in ownership, you begin to move with a quiet confidence. You don't panic when something appears that you don't prefer. You know it is only a reflection of a previous state, a shadow passing through. You no longer feel urgency because you trust the process. You no longer beg for results because you know the inner shift is already underway. You are patient not because you're waiting, but because you understand that persistence in the state leads to manifestation in the world. To be the operant power also means you stop waiting for science to tell you what to believe. You decide what is true, you declare it within, and the world must conform. The world is not the authority, you are. The moment you shift your assumption, reality begins to reconfigure. People, events, opportunities begin to line up. Not by force, but by natural law. You don't need to convince others. You simply remain loyal to your inner vision and the world follows. This is not arrogance, it is alignment with truth. To walk in the awareness that you are the operant power is to walk in harmony with the laws of consciousness. It is to claim your birthright as a creator, not in ego, but in understanding. You are not trying to get things, you are revealing them. Everything you could ever want already exists as a possibility in the field of infinite potential. Your state of consciousness is what selects it, animates it, brings it into experience. You cannot operate in fear and expect love to appear. You cannot dwell in lack and expect abundance to flow. You must become the thing you desire internally before you ever see it externally. That is your role as the operant power. You move first in mind and feeling, and the world moves in response. This movement is not frantic, it is still. It is the quiet shift in belief that says, I am, not I hope to be. And that subtle shift is what moves mountains. You realize that you are not at the mercy of the world, because the world has no power of its own. It is animated by you, it takes its shape from you, and it is infinitely flexible when you stop resisting and start imagining. You do not have to change others, change conditions, or change the past. You only need to change your assumption, and all else will be added unto you. This is the key. You lead from within. Even when appearances seem solid, even when doubts whisper loudly, you return to your center. You remind yourself, I am the operant power. I decide what is true for me. I choose my reality, not through willpower, but through assumption. And when that assumption is persisted in with feeling, it must become fact. This knowing becomes your calm in the storm. You no longer need to fight or prove or convince. You simply assume and allow. You no longer say, I hope this works, because you understand that the law is not about hope, it is about knowing. You assume your new identity and you walk in it. You feel from it. And that state becomes your dwelling place. As you persist, life must reflect it. It cannot resist your assumption because your assumption is the command. Whether in the realm of health, wealth, relationships, or purpose, the principle is the same. You are the operant power. And what you accept within will be expressed without. The outer world is not the cause, it is the effect. It is a mirror, a reflection, an echo of your inner state. Every condition, every event, every person you encounter is simply revealing something you have accepted as true within yourself. To chase the world, to try to fix it, to attempt to rearrange circumstances without first shifting within, is like trying to change your reflection by wiping the mirror. It is not only futile, it is misunderstanding the entire process of creation. You are not here to fight with appearances. You are here to understand that they are projections of your own consciousness. And by changing what you are conscious of being, you change what the mirror shows you. Most people live their lives reacting to appearances. They see lack and assume it is real, so they feel worry, and that worry creates more lack. They see illness and assume it has power, so they dwell in fear, and that fear deepens the experience. They see rejection, betrayal, failure, and without knowing it, they reinforce these realities by emotionally accepting them as true. But the outer world is always one step behind. It is never the leader. It only shows what has already been accepted within. You are never looking at something new. You are looking at something old. Yesterday's thoughts and beliefs clothed in today's circumstances. This is why reacting to what is seen keeps you trapped in cycles. If you respond with fear, anxiety, or defeat to what is presently before you, you are merely feeding that state. You are giving it your emotional agreement, and thus you are sowing the seed of its continuation. The world responds to your dominant feeling, not to your surface words. If you say, I am free, but deep inside you are dwelling in a state of imprisonment, then freedom cannot bloom. Not because it's withheld from you, but because you are not inhabiting the frequency where it lives. So the first step is to stop looking outward for validation, permission, or rescue. You must learn to withdraw attention from the outer picture and place it on the inner reality that you wish to experience. Not in denial of what exists, but in the knowing that what exists can be changed by changing the self. When you change your inner state, you do not need to explain yourself to others. You simply move into a new assumption, and the world, being nothing more than a shadow, must adjust to reflect it. The feeling is the secret. It is not enough to recite affirmations or mentally imagine new realities if they are not infused with the living, breathing energy of belief and emotional truth. You must feel the state as though it were already yours. You must make it real inside before it becomes real outside. You must persist in that inner knowing, even when appearances deny it. That is the test. Can you remain loyal to your desired state even when the world around you gives you every reason to doubt? The answer must be yes. If you truly understand how creation works, the outer world is delayed. It is slow to reflect, like an echo bouncing back after the sound has already been made. If you forget that, you will fall back into old reactions and you'll start assuming that nothing is changing. But nothing could be further from the truth. The moment you shift within, the change begins. The new reality is already forming, but whether you see it depends on whether you stay faithful to the new assumption or return to the old one. Your only task is to hold the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not once, not for a moment, but as your new dwelling place. You live in it mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and soon the outer world catches up. This is not just a theory, it is law. The world must reflect what you assume to be true, not occasionally, not sometimes, but always. The only variable is you. The world does not decide your fate, you do. This understanding releases you from struggle. You no longer have to chase success, love, or peace. You no longer need to strive, hustle, or plead. You understand that these things are not outside you, they are within, and they flow into form as you accept them as real. You become still, you become deliberate, you become masterful in your inner world, knowing that everything in the outer world is a response, even in difficult moments. Even when life appears to contradict your desire, you remember this truth. You remind yourself that what is seen is not permanent. What is seen is not the source. The source is invisible and it is within you. Your job is not to fix the external picture, but to revise your inner vision. When you do this faithfully, consistently, and lovingly, the outer must conform. This is not ignoring the world. It is transcending its influence. It is not pretending problems don't exist. It is understanding that problems are projections and the projector is your own consciousness. When you adjust the lens, the picture changes. It has no choice. You are not reacting anymore. You are responding from a place of knowing. You are moving from fear to faith, from worry to confidence, from doubt to certainty. And in that shift, miracles become ordinary. What once seemed impossible begins to unfold naturally. People change, circumstances realign, opportunities appear, not because you forced them, but because you aligned with them inwardly. You assumed they were yours, you believed in the unseen, and the unseen became seen. That is how reality works, not from outside in, but from inside out. You begin to see every moment as a choice. Will I react to the old or respond with the new? Will I stay faithful to the vision or fall back into fear? And each time you choose the inner truth over the outer appearance, you are building a new world. Quietly, steadily, beautifully. You are creating a life that matches your highest assumptions, not because the world gave it to you, but because you first gave it to yourself. There is a sacred power in persistence, not the kind that struggles or pushes, but the quiet, unwavering loyalty to an inner truth. It is the persistence of assuming your desire is already fulfilled, even when every outer appearance seems to deny it. This is the great secret. Reality bends not to those who try harder, but to those who refuse to shift their inner state in the face of contradiction. It is not about effort, it is about constancy. About dwelling in the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it becomes your natural home, until it becomes so real within you that the world has no choice but to mirror it. Most people give up too soon. They assume something isn't working because they don't see immediate results. But creation doesn't happen on demand. It happens through alignment, through sustained belief, through the ability to stand still internally while the world moves and rearranges itself in response to your assumption. It is a process of spiritual gestation. Just as a seed planted in the soil needs time to root, sprout, and bloom, so too do your assumptions need time to crystallize into form. The mistake is to dig up the seed with doubt, to question its growth, or to declare it dead because you don't yet see the flower. The power lies in remaining faithful, not just when it feels easy or when you're surrounded by supportive signs, but especially when you're not. That is when your assumption is tested. That is when the old world seems to rise up in defiance of your new belief. But even that is part of the process. The appearance of the old is simply the final echo of what was. It is not a signal to give up. It is a sign that the new is replacing the old. And if you can stand firm in the midst of that apparent contradiction, you will pass through it. You will reach the other side. Because you never stop believing. To persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled is to live in the end. It is to choose moment by moment, to identify with the version of you who already has what you once longed for. It is not pretending, it is not acting, it is knowing. Knowing that what you assume to be true must by law become your experience. So you persist, not out of desperation, but out of inner certainty. You persist because you know who you are. You persist because you trust the law. You persist because your inner world has already shifted and you refuse to return to the old state no matter what. There will be days when the world tries to pull you back, days when old feelings creep in, but the key is not to resist them with force. It is to observe them without identity, to see them as old patterns passing through, to acknowledge them, feel them, and then gently return to your chosen state. Over and over again, you return. And each return strengthens the new assumption. Each time you come back to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are rewiring the pattern of your reality. You are deepening the groove, reinforcing the truth, and signaling to the unseen that you are unwavering. Persistence is not loud. It does not always shout or demand. Often it is silent and still. It is the quiet repetition of a new belief. It is the calm refusal to be moved by what is seen. It is the inner commitment to dwell only in what is wanted. And this stillness is powerful. It is magnetic. It draws to you that which you are embodying. It reorganizes time, space, and form to match the feeling you've chosen. Not once, not briefly, but consistently. You begin to understand that what you call the delay is not denial. It is the natural unfolding of a new state. The delay is the bridge of incidents being built, a bridge that you must cross by remaining faithful, not by questioning the path, but by walking it with trust. The moment you change your assumption, life begins to respond. You may not see it immediately, but you feel the shift, and that feeling is your signal. It tells you you've moved. And now your job is to stay there, to remain, not to visit the new state occasionally, but to make it your dwelling place. This kind of persistence is not exhausting, it is freeing. Because when you know the outcome is certain, you relax. You no longer rush or panic. You do not look for proof at every turn. You stop needing signs to feel safe. Your safety is in your knowing. And in that knowing you find peace. In that peace you find power. Because now you are living from the end, not hoping, not wishing, but assuming. You begin to detach from time. You stop measuring how long something is taking because you know that time is not the creative force, consciousness is. You stop needing to control the how or the when. You surrender those details to the unseen and you focus only on remaining in the state. That is your part. That is your creation. The rest unfolds naturally, sometimes in ways you could never have imagined. But it always unfolds because you persisted. Persistence transforms you. It reshapes your identity. It moves you from being someone who tries to someone who is, from someone who desires to someone who lives. And that transformation is the greatest gift. Because once you know you can persist and see results, you are free. You are no longer bound by fear, by time, or by appearances. You are anchored in truth. You are unmoved by what the world says. You have become the one who creates, not the one who reacts. There is no limit to what this persistence can achieve. Because the law does not recognize big or small, hard or easy. It only reflects the assumption. And if you can persist in the assumption that everything always works out for you, then everything must. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. And that alignment held over time is what draws it into form. So you continue. You wake up each day and choose again. You return to the feeling. You persist. Not because you need to, but because you know it is already done.